Starfield just got what could be the biggest update the game will ever see because the creation kit is officially and finally available along with a bunch of legitimately good content additions tacked onto this update. Now, while this news promises the potential for a ton of good, there's also a darker side to this that we'll have to discuss as well. I've already gone in and tested all the new content so you can get a better understanding of precisely what these updates have delivered and whether they're worth your time. For those of you who haven't played previous Bethesda titles in recent years, the Creation Kit is a Bethesda-supported modding tool that allows anyone to build mods accessible to both PC and console players. Now, it's true that mods have already been in development for the game in the 9 months since it's released, but this has almost exclusively been through Nexus mods and only available to PC players, so this is a massive win for console players who've been stuck with garbage menu UI, excessive transition times between menu swapping, and a myriad of other issues, and we're just talking quality of life here, and not even gameplay altering mods. What the Creation Kit has the potential to really do for all players is bring in a whole new wave of player-made content, from weapons to quests, companions, game system overhauls, and so much more to the Starfield universe. Now, this may sound great in theory, but there are some drawbacks to the creation ecosystem that will likely keep people from coming back to the game. The first is that the majority of legitimate content mods that add something new like a questline to the game that's created by Bethesda or a verified Bethesda partnered creator will cost creation credits to purchase, so don't be surprised if you start seeing more paywalled updates for Starfield now that the creation kit is out. These creation credits have a baseline cost of $1 per 100 credits, with up to a 10% bonus if you spend 50 USD for 5,500 credits, which is an absurd amount to dump into the game at this point given how little is currently available. Maybe in a few months we'll see more worth purchasing, but even then it seems a little nuts that you could end up spending well over half the cost of the base game on a few cosmetics, weapons, and quests here and there, so let's hope we get a lot more free mods or passion projects by community creators that are worth donating to instead. If you did purchase the premium edition of Starfield, however, you'll receive 1,000 credits to spend when you first visit the creation menu, which is a nice little gift, I'll say. Given that with the new Trackers Alliance content that was added with this update, which I'll go into more detail later, comes with one baseline main quest and one creation credit purchasable quest for 700 credits, so call it 7 USD, is already happening, I would expect this to be the new status quo for content releases by Bethesda, which isn't a good sign to me. Their update video even said that if they were to add more quests to the Trackers Alliance, it would likely be through creation as well. This completely feels like content that should have been in the base game that was either not properly finished, and or it was intentionally delayed so that it could be shipped with the creation kit to set a precedent for future content releases. Obviously, this is speculation, but it sure felt convenient. And don't get me wrong, I'm happy that the game is becoming more complete however slow it is, but it definitely sucks getting a half-baked game release, and then when new content comes out that should have been there to begin with, also gets partially released with a paywall gating the rest of it. I'm not super stoked about the future of the game. The classic line has always been that mods will save this game and make up for its shortcomings, but there are some things that are so fundamentally flawed about Starfield that I'm worried that this may not be possible in all respects, despite the sandbox that modders now have to work with. Traveling from point A to point B during most missions, for example, simply doesn't have the same level of discovery as other games because more often than not, you're just tossed into a loading screen. This isn't like Skyrim where you could be walking on foot to your next quest objective and 10 interesting things sidetrack you along the way. That's part of the beauty of the open world nature of classic Bethesda games that Starfield is sorely lacking because all of those interesting things are spread too thin over a world that is too open with over 100 systems and these 1,000 planets that we can visit. So there's a good chance you'll never see dozens of these unique things, and you're very rarely going to stumble across them in passing during another mission. Those things are there, trust me. There's a lot of cool stuff that most people have never seen and probably never will because they simply played the main story or a faction questline and thought that was all the game had to offer, and they weren't willing to sift through hundreds of potentially barren planets just to find one of these little nuggets. We also know that land vehicles are in the works too for improving ground exploration, so hopefully that comes out sooner rather than later and isn't a creation-tied addition to the game, but a free addition. Hey, maybe someone makes one themselves in Creation Kit in a week and then Christmas comes early for the community and you can start zooming around planets, but then you still run into the issue of there being very little to get excited about with exploration since everything is proc-gen and feels very samey. My other concern is that the game has dwindled to such a low player count since release that the appetite to create mods may no longer be there for modders. Time will tell here, but I am hopeful that the notion of being able to repurpose pretty much any planet and make a unique localized area for whatever you want will be enticing to modders. This would really help eliminate the loading screen issue if players are instead exploring one giant POI that has been uniquely crafted rather than the same proc-gen building you've seen 50 times kind of slop that we see when landing at random landing sites. So we're headed in the right direction by offering tools to the community and the means to install what the community creates across all platforms, but it's all going to come down to how much interest there ends up being in servicing this game for passion projects and from Bethesda themselves when they're likely far more focused on finishing Elder Scrolls 6 at this point. Honestly though, from less than 12 hours of it being live, I've already seen a few gameplay changing mods that look enticing, so a few months from now we could have some really cool stuff hitting the shelves. In terms of Bethesda made free creations, there's a legendary Starborn suit that has very good stats, and there's also an observatory that you can place in your outpost, which is very large, but it's completely cosmetic, so do with that what you will. As for the paid options on release, I really think the only thing worth paying for is the Vulture Trackers Alliance quest, as you get a full quest and a new weapon out of it, but everything else like the Constellation plushies and the fancy ship hab is overpriced cosmetics with no functional benefits. But you do whatever you like and whatever makes you happy. There is an upgraded boost pack mod that you can get that only costs $1, so maybe that's worth considering if you really hate the boost packs as well. Finally, if you're someone interested in modding for the Starfield community, you should definitely download the Creation Kit, which is completely free, and start messing around with things yourself. Alright, that's enough Creation Kit talk for now. Let's go over the other updates to the game that came with this patch. Ammo crafting and enhancements to melee weapons is a welcome change to the game that I'm happy to see, but I do have some issues with this as well. The melee weapon enhancements are very straightforward. You have new tiers of weapons similar to how guns work, with the baseline, calibrated, refined, and advanced variants, and for melee weapons you have your baseline standard named weapons, and then they go all the way up to quantum edged as what I assume are the highest rank, with a likely 1 or 2 ranks in between. I'm really not too sure because my character is too high of a level to see the lower ones drop, so I was only finding these quantum edged ones out in the wild and in shops, and they were around 4 times stronger than the baseline variant, which is a massive buff to melee builds and makes them completely viable now in my opinion. Unfortunately though, unarmed builds are just as ass as before, so you'll have to get a mod to make them viable. Another big change is that you can modify melee weapons at a workbench now too, assuming you've got your research methods leveled enough to do so. Material costs are not that bad, and you can add either status effects like radiation or poison, or you can modify the attack rate to be faster at the expense of damage, or vice versa, or have some armor pen with your blade hits as well. This is a well overdue update for anyone looking to get up close and personal and to try some stealth samurai builds, and now it's more than possible, albeit it's kind of a little silly considering you're going to be bringing a knife to a gunfight 99% of the time against humanoids in this game, but against monsters it's definitely fair game to hack and slash. The ammo crafting side of things is a nice addition, but it's not as great as it seems, I have to say. While yes, you can make your ammo, you're going to require a lot of raw materials to do this, and more importantly, you need the new primer items to make them as well. This will be nice when you're strapped with materials, but unless you have the primers to fund the ammo creation as well, it's going to be tough to make everything you need in many cases, and may just end up being more annoying than buying the ammo or scavenging it like you probably already were doing. If anything, it's a bonus, but it'll probably not be your exclusive source of acquiring ammo unless the primers end up being incredibly easy to obtain in high quantities, or you're doing a restricted no chopping type playthrough and it's your only option other than scavenging. I checked the Jemison Mercantile, UC Distribution, and the Arsenal in New Atlantis and found less than 10 primers total in the 3 shops, which is horrific. So yeah, don't count on being able to buy these reliably unless this gets updated or there are some secretly loaded shops I haven't found on another planet. Finally, let's talk about the Trackers Alliance. We've already covered most of the cost issues tied to this release, so let's get into the content itself. The Trackers Alliance questline starts off free for the first quest, Starjacker, which can be started by interacting with the mysterious stranger who can be found in the major cities, and they'll invite you to the new home base of the Trackers Alliance in Aquila City. I found her outside the lodge, and they later made a funny comment about how they found me because of the adoring fan blabbering on about me, so expect some custom dialogue based on your traits either here or throughout the questline, which I always appreciate. I had a kid stuff interaction later on too, which was also cool. Once you visit the headquarters, you'll be introduced to a few members of the Alliance, and you'll properly accept your mission. I played through the entire first mission and have started the Vulture, and I have to say they've done a reasonably good job with this one, and the gameplay didn't suffer from the issue of jumping, to 4 different planets across the quest, but instead contained everything to either Aquila City for the first third, and then the last 2/3 of the quest on a single star station before returning to complete the quest. The set piece was completely unique. The computer terminals they had very solid world building entries that were funny as well. And you get a new weapon out of it, which I'm not calling a spoiler since we literally see it in the trailer video that dropped. Once you're done the quest, you get access to the lower level of the Alliance building, where there are 5 more unique NPCs, each with some solid character dialogue to set the tone for what kind of people are part of the Alliance, plus a new vendor and new reward currency you get from completing Alliance bounties, of which there are elite versions you can get in the lower level that are generated like the other mission boards. This is your primary means of getting this new resource for special rewards. You also unlock the ability to scan people to see if they were active bounties and engage with them as you see fit, with peace and negotiation or violence. For a free update, I'm pretty happy with what's been provided, but the bigger issue here is that the meaty, actual full fleshed out quests that will come in the future, like the Vulture that was released with the Creation Kit, will probably all cost creation credits to access. If the baseline is 7 USD for one quest and a new weapon, that shit had better be damn good and take me a few hours to complete, or we're just getting hosed here. Not to mention that again, I think these were concepts that probably got shelved and should have been part of the base game to begin with, because 1, the Trackers Alliance obviously existed in some capacity with the mission boards to start, and there was a quest in Cydonia with an Alliance member that easily felt like something that could have pushed you into being inducted into the Alliance after helping them out. I do like the introduction of the faction though, and I think for the small bit we've seen of it so far, they did a solid job, and it feels like there's a lot of room to flesh out an interesting, more complete questline with the Alliance characters. While I'm not making as many Starfield videos as I have in the past, if there ends up being more worth covering, you can expect me to be there for it. Whether it's Starfield or any game I'm covering, if I'm posting, you can trust I've done my homework and you're getting the best information out there, so consider subscribing if that's what you're looking for. Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree DLC is hot on my list to cover at the end of June, so expect some solid info on that in a few weeks. And that covers everything for today. Again, I'm happy with what this could mean for the future of the game from a community modding perspective, and the solid quality of life and gameplay updates we're getting more frequently as of late. But I'm equally pessimistic about the paywalling that we're already seeing happen for new Bethesda released content through the Creation Kit. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.